Hi, I'm Brenda Gingles and welcome to my jewelry studio, my shop, my playroom. I don't know why I call it work because most of the time I'm just playing. So I've mostly been enjoying playing in my new studio out here on the Tomorrow River in the garden level, which most people would call a basement, and find that I am finally, I think, have that rapport with the metals, with the materials that I thought I should have and didn't know quite how to get to when I started 48 years ago. But what's interesting about metalworking is that a metal artist has materials that are very precise. A sheet of metal, a tubing, and wire. All of our materials look exactly alike when we get them. And what we do with them when we get them is absolutely amazing to me. Where they get their ideas and where I get my ideas is still a mystery to me. But over the years of 48 years of collecting scraps and pieces that almost didn't work, I'm finding that that design process just keeps growing and growing and growing, and it's all built on those very, very first pieces, those very first projects. Somebody asked me, how long does it take you to make a piece? She's not impressed if I asking you to pay $100 for it, and it takes me 20 minutes. But you have to realize that it's taken me 48 years to learn how to do that in 20 minutes. This piece, for instance, is one of my fun pieces that I see if I can show you. You can't see it from here. It's a fuse piece that I did 45 years ago. It sat on my workbench all these years wondering what is the fate of this piece. It has finally, a number of 10, 15 years ago, it finally found its place, and it is still evolving. It's a fuse piece that was reproduced by a casting process so that I could create and continue exploring those particular elements, taking parts of them, adding to them, taking apart other parts, putting with different kinds of materials. So that kind of thing is what really excites me about working in the media that I work in. This is a pretty clean workbench for me, but this is usually what it looks like. And this is where I get my ideas. Not from, maybe from nature because that's been in my brain forever, from architectural forms because that's been in my brain forever. But where I get my ideas are the actual pieces of metal. 48 years I've collected a lot of scraps, a lot of discs, and they inspire. The other day I found this little disc and these three pieces that will become something, and I was excited about it. That's what's exciting. These come about because I have all these discs. What am I going to do with them? I can put them through a rolling mill. We'll show you a rolling mill. So this is where my ideas come from. This is a rolling mill, and it works basically the same as a Ringer washing machine. Two cylinders opposing each other. Okay, I have here a disc that is cut out with my disc cutter, a sterling, about a 16 gauge, and I can reduce the gauge, make it thinner, and as a train does with a penny on the track, it will make it longer. I can also incise lines on it. Size lines on it or a texture, and so I have created, and this becomes an inspiration. What do I do with all of these discs, these drawer full of discs that I have that I can create by making them long and use them in narrower. I also can take a heavy wire, 8 gauge square wire, and it can be drawn down to something quite a bit smaller. Eventually, even a 20 gauge, which is what an earring wire is. And as I'm rolling it, it's square, and it's becoming a narrower gauge. It's also work hardening and becoming springy, which is a great thing, and for a lot of purposes too. makes it much more sturdy. And it has gained a number of inches from just that small piece, this small piece here. So, this is one of my favorite tools. So what I'm doing here is sawing a shape in metal. I can pierce a hole in it with a drill. Oh, here we are. With the drill, and then thread the blade through the, which is not much more than a horsehair, and go from the inside and carve and cut out a piece from the middle of a piece. But I'm going to just cut this piece, and then we'll see what I might want to do with this flat piece of metal. Now the thing that I find most interesting in my work is that I almost always add some sort of a dimension, and that can be in the form of forming or folding. For many years, all I used was a wooden block. You see this? A wooden block, and force that metal into the wooden dent, basically. I now have a hydraulic press, which does it much quicker and more evenly. But one of the other things I like to do with metal is to bend it. Twist it and bend it, and have no idea sometimes what might come about from that particular action. And sometimes it takes me a while to figure out what it is that I like about that piece and how I want to use it. But I already see here that there are some areas I might want to cut off. I can do that with the clippers, the nippers, or a saw. And then there are places that are going to have to be soldered, that I use silver solder, that are going to have to weld or secure the form. There are several methods to join metal. Cold joining would be rivets and folding, some regularly construction type joining. But then there's also soldering, which is most of what I do. And I can say that it is probably, after 48 years, still one of the most frustrating things and that I do, because there's something very mysterious about the heat and the heat sink and the amount of metal and the flux and all that. Many times it is just plain luck that it actually goes where you want it to go and doesn't turn into be a blob, just as this will become with given enough heat. Interesting thing about silver is that it will draw up on itself, and this will become one single ball. Start out a larger piece. This piece actually didn't quite work, so I'll have to go back to it, as that happens many times. There she goes. And other people that I've worked with that I've had in classes get a kick out of the fact that I think the most exciting thing in the world is seeing a bezel solder run all the way around. Once the piece is soldered, connected, we'll go into an acid bath, which really isn't an acid, but we'll clean the flux as well as a fire scale. So that's the process of soldering, and I think maybe I will probably not ever live long enough to say that I'm a total expert at it, because it has its own life. What I enjoy, I think, most about doing the shows and making jewelry is that it belongs to somebody, and it can have a value that may be monetary to them, but that usually isn't it at all. It is a reminder of a time, a space, a place, a person, an event, and they become commemorative pieces. And I think that is what is most important to me, is that they do become a part of somebody's story. This particular piece is a photograph of a piece that I did 25 years ago, and a woman called me and asked me this last winter to reproduce that piece. She had since been sold, because it reminded her of what her mother told her the woods looked like in Ohio when she grew up. It's now an exhibit right now, but I'm anxious for her to have it, and the fact that she remembered it that long and that it meant that much to her makes my job very, very simple and very good and very fulfilling. And that's what each one of these pieces becomes. I hope you'll join us at the tour and step into my studio and investigate, possibly even exploring the media yourself.